Welcome to the Intercut podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he danced with the devil in the pale moonlight. It's Arturo Zurita.
And it was a long night, man, so this episode is brought to you by Jitters Coffee, the coffee in a flash thing that I've been holding it. I think it expires tomorrow. For those of you who don't know.
Hey, no free promos.
No, I don't think they sell this anymore. This was part of the Zack Snyder Justice League, the full cut.
You're throwing it back.
Yeah, they were selling boxes of this. This is the last remaining item I got from there. They gave me like Aquaman fish patties, which don't sound right. They gave me a bunch of other stuff, Themyscira s'mores. But I think someone else may have had something that's even a little bit better than me. I see him pulling up something right there.
Yeah, we got to get the guy with the full body armor also joining us. If he allows himself to go down to that place, he'll never come back. It's Chris from 3C Films.
Well, I mean,
thanks for joining us, man.
If you got something, you said it literally expires tomorrow. That
I swear to you, man. Don't pull up with the
no. I just come on. You gotta get the popcorn bucket count. This thing.
Stop.
Ooh, I can't believe these things are
couldn't
selling
find
out. You know, people
Yeah.
are selling these for almost $200 now on eBay. I should have bought another one.
Yeah, someone's almost dumb enough to buy it for $210, which might be me later, man. What'd you get yours? AMC, Regal?
AMC. I was like, dude, for $26, they put some deep. There's like cat
nothing.
Scratches and all that stuff on it. It's good.
Ooh.
I can't wear it though, but it's cool to have.
See, that's the collector's dilemma always, to get one or to get more.
Yeah.
Well, we had to bring on our resident Bat expert to dive into the Batman movies with this Batman bracket. Very excited to dive into the history of the Caped Crusader in film on this episode. There's a whole bunch of different movies from different directors with different tones and different Batmen at the center of it. So to start things off, I wanted to ask both of you, and maybe Chris, you can lead us off. What are the elements that you look for in a good Batman movie?
The elements I would look for the most is, and we finally got it, but I don't want to get ahead of myself, is the detective aspect. I just love seeing a Batman who uses his brain, you know, because the man is human, surrounded by all these other superhumans, and when he proves what he's got up here, that's what I look forward to in the Batman. And also the gadgets. I just love every time they can come out with a new gadget.
Exactly. He's got the access to that wealth and that armory or the research, and it's always cool to see what kind of new gadgets and spins they'll make on the Batman technology. What about Art? What do you think are the things you really want to see in a Batman movie?
I agree with Chris, because obviously it's Detective Comics. DC Comics is Detective Comics.
Yep.
But it's got to be that rogues gallery. Every villain who he faces is always going to be an adversary that takes it to the next level. And I think that unlike a lot of superheroes that are out there, nobody has a rogues gallery like Batman does. And I think a lot of his stories really ride on the challenge that they bring up to him. So that's always what I'm looking forward to. It's the fight, it's the battle. I need a twofer over here.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite of the villains, or is that almost too hard to choose with a character like Batman that has so many iconic villains?
The Riddler's always been my favorite. The Riddler.
Yeah.
It's always been the Riddler. Yeah. What about you, Chris?
I've always been drawn to Mr. Freeze. Ever since they switched up his storyline in the background in Heart of Ice in the anime series, I really like that. I hope
You ever seen Sub-Zero?
Sub-Zero? Yes, I have.
Yeah, that's another good one right there. So I'm really hoping that they bring him in for the sequel.
Well, hopefully. I'll talk about what I'm scared about if they do bring him in later.
Yeah. I'm also curious to see how your guys' interpretations of what Batman should be or what Batman could be was maybe affected by the first Batman you saw. Do you feel like you've gone on a journey with the character where it's not the stuff that you were introduced to that you're interested in now, or do you want it to return to the true Batman you grew up with? What was your first Batman, Art?
I think the originals, that and the animated series that I was watching a lot growing up. I had the VHS to all the originals, so I was just always playing those back and forth. I mean, you got to understand, I also grew up with like seeing Vicky Vale give those eyes, and then also seeing Batgirl and Poison Ivy. There was also other things I don't know if we're gonna go back to, but very indicative of my coming of age for a lot of these Batman movies that I was watching growing up. But I don't know. I like the different ways that they take it. I am as someone who loves Batman, lives, breathes Batman. That's my thing. Wow. I'm not as precious with it, surprisingly. I'm cool with seeing different interpretations. I'm cool with people taking it in different ways. And I know sometimes it's crossed the line. I'll admit that. But it's interesting to, I guess, see like a fan film version of it. I don't know. I'm not too limiting on the character, but I think that there's still certain things that does make Batman Batman, which I think we'll get into as we do a lot of these matchups.
Yeah, for me, a lot was my first was Michael Keaton Batman, and then those 4 subsequent Batman movies that got sillier as they went along. And I guess that did kind of help shape it, because one of my main complaints with modern Batman is the too grounded feel that strip him away from having.
Really? Okay.
Like I like the groundedness, but then I feel like there's a point where then you can't have villains like Clayface or Man-Bat or Killer Croc, because then it's like, well, how do you explain that in the realistic word? Like, that was my thing. Like, I hope they do Mr. Freeze, but I don't know if they'll give him the skin disease, the ray gun, and all that stuff. Like, it'll just be a scientist that could throw, like, I don't know.
He's complaining about global warming and they make it that instead, and you never see the man do it. Yeah. All right, I feel you.
So I feel like that's how it's kind of shaped it, but like, I mean, it's still cool to see like watch a movie and be like, man, that could happen. That does feel real. There's a certain feel in that, but I think I would like it one day to go back to kind of like a serious version of Batman and Robin, if that makes sense, where it is a crazy world, it's nonsensical, but it's dark, that doesn't have to just rely on realistic physics and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is really great about that Batman character is kind of the malleability of it, right? Like, he's not this square peg that's being fit into round holes. You can kind of change what the character is, change the gender focus of the character, or get into bat animals if you wanted. With the extended Bat family are all have all had interesting backgrounds too. So I like that there is this history of very different takes on the character, and I agree with Chris. It'd be kind of cool to see somebody almost take it back in the opposite direction, because we are so firmly rooted in this grounded, realistic Batman. Not that I dislike those movies in any way; those are my favorite iterations of the character. But if we are getting into this kind of Warner Brothers multiversal approach to the characters, where we can have Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and then maybe a different take on the Joker, and one take on Superman, and there's the Black Superman film in development, maybe we will also get these alternate takes on Batman happening simultaneously at some point.
I want to see a full horror movie.
Either.
I like, that one shot in BVS when Batfleck's like up on that corner and he actually looks like a bat? I love that stuff. I want to see almost like a Batman from the perspective of just the people.
The villains.
Like, they see him as like this really crazy figure that's in the shadows. That'd be really dope.
I like that idea.
Absolutely. So in a little bit, we will talk about Battinson, Batmobiles, and Bat nipples. But first, make sure you're subscribed to the Intercut podcast, either the video podcast on youtube.com/intercutpod or the audio podcast available on most podcatchers. Also, follow Intercut on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We are at IntercutPod. That's Intercut Pod, and that's short for podcast. We're also Intercut Pod on Patreon, where you can support the show for as little as $1 a month. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. When you do, you make me happier than the Joker after a good ass whooping from the Batman. Shout out to Save Ferris, known as What's the Matter Around These Parts, who said that Intercut is better than Apple. Quote, okay, I haven't been able to access my iTunes for more than a decade. I had to go through some chutes and ladders to even get on here. Apple lost my entire music library back in the day, but that's neither here nor there. Why is this relevant? Well, I've been listening to these cats since 1992, and it's always a great time. I don't think we've been doing this podcast since 1992.
93 maybe.
They put the work in to find all the TV, movies, and other entertainment. You will never leave without some great recommendations. Zach and Arturo are guaranteed to make you laugh and fill your your noggins with a great smorgasbord of information. So yeah, this pod, that's short for podcast, is great. You're great, Whatsamata. Thank you
Whatsamata.
all so much for all those kind words.
I hope you didn't watch the Apple event this morning, man.
Oh man, I did.
Oh, some crazy machines. The stuff Bruce Wayne probably already has.
Right?
Stuff of Lucian Fox's dreams, maybe. All right, we should get into this Batman bracket.
Let's
it is
do it.
broken down into two main regions, a live action region and an animated region, although I had to sneak a couple of live action movies into the animated region because we wanted to get all of the solo Batman films, as well as Batman v Superman on here. And then there's just a few of those animated classics that no look at the character of Batman would be complete without. So let's start it here with perhaps the brightest adaptation of the Caped Crusader versus the darkest. Let's go back to 1966's Batman, directed by Leslie H. Martinson, versus Batman v Superman, directed by Zack Snyder. Art, why don't you kick us off here? What is your favorite of these two Batman movies?
Yeah, they are completely the opposite. You have one who's literally running around with a bomb and shark repellent and all those great goodies that are there. And it's very
Some days
interesting.
you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Sometimes you just can't. I love how they hit him on the streets with that line to this day. But I'm going Batman v Superman.
Yeah. Chris, is that the way you're leaning too?
Yeah, Batman vs Superman. Like I think there's always going to be a grand respect for like Adam West's version of Batman and whatnot, but I just feel like in today's modern look at Batman, it was just like of its time. And if you didn't really grow up with it, I don't know if you could have the love for it that some people do today. Like my dad, he grew up with that and he loves that version of Batman, but he didn't show me that as a kid, so I didn't find out about Adam West until like I was like, oh, he voices a guy on Family Guy. That's cool. And then that was better. So I'm gonna have to go Batman vs Superman.
66, they love it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that's really like fun about it. It's definitely after a very different effect than Zack Snyder is with the character. And I mean, I would argue it's doing it pretty well in terms of giving you this kind of broad, farcical take on the superhero. It's so out of sync with what our expectations are for this kind of character now that it is very funny to go back and see just how far the character has come. I mean, I don't want to fault it. I might choose it because it is the most different out of here. But y'all already went with Batman v Superman, so that one is going to make it to the next round
For the record,
in this matchup.
I like to say Ultimate Edition, the Ultimate Cut. Just want to make sure
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
at
yeah,
least
Ultimate
out there. You know what I mean?
Edition, please, yeah.
Got to make sure that that's there for sure.
The
But hey,
best version of Batman
the best
v
version
Superman.
of that one, yeah. But shout out to 1966.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about a couple of animated Batman classics with Mask of the Phantasm from 1993, directed by Bruce Timm and Eric Radorsky, versus Return of the Joker, the Batman Beyond movie, directed by Kurt Geda. Chris, which one of these animated movies is your favorite in this
You have to
matchup?
start with me. Okay, before I give my answer, I do just want to say you have to really respect Return of the Joker, because that was like
Yes, sir.
completely new, just
Yes,
brought out of
sir.
the gate, introduced a whole new Batman, and even just like the opening of that movie with like just old Batman deciding it's like, this is it, I hit my limit, I picked up a gun. It's like, it just understood the essence of the character, and then to be able to have that mentor relationship that spun off into the series, I love what they did with that movie. But Mask of the Phantasm was like so ahead of its time for what came out, you know, and just that storyline that played out. It did a lot for Batman before the movies could do that for Batman, in my opinion.
Definitely. 100%. And I hate you, Zach, because Return of the Joker, I absolutely love. I love that idea of seeing an older Batman and just the way that he's having these flashbacks dealing with the Joker. If I'm not mistaken, Mark Hamill obviously continues to kill it there. I'm a big Batman Beyond fan, and I wanted this to go up against some of the other movies, but Mask of the Phantasm was the creative team of the animated series, what in my opinion is the definitive Batman, and they came to make a masterpiece of a movie that released in theaters. And like Chris said, it's Ego. It's if you read the comic Batman Ego, this is that movie. This is Batman realizing deeply all of his trauma. Half the movie spends time at a cemetery. You have a lot of the movie being flashbacks. It's such an intriguing way of telling a story that I think a lot of people to this day, when they end up finding out about this movie, realize, oh wow, I need to rearrange my top 3. I love Return of the Joker. If you haven't seen Return of the Joker, do yourself a favor, watch Return of the Joker. But I can't put it over Mask of the Phantasm. I can't.
Yeah, Return of the Joker is one that I just caught up with in my rewatch, or my catch up, I guess, to prepare for this bracket, and I was really impressed by the world building.
Bro.
It's just does a really great job at throwing you into this alternate version of Gotham, with giving you some of these things that you have these little like toeholds of familiarity, but it's all inverted. It's all changed up in some kind of way, and it's really exciting, especially given that when you bring some knowledge of the character into it, to see how they subvert your expectations in some ways. I kind of want to go Return of the Joker here, but I think I know that I can't.
I almost made a fan there. Damn. Also, do you know that there's an uncut version? I didn't know this.
Oh.
They actually had to remove some punches, some blood, different things.
That's what I was literally about to say. Like, I remember that movie actually like scared me as a kid. Like the whole scene with Little Joker. I don't know if I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it.
That's all you need to say. Exactly.
Yeah, with all that stuff, I was like, as a kid watching that, like, what the heck? That's dark.
Chris, you about to make me flip-flop, man. Don't do that to me. But I'm a big Return of the Joker fan.
Same.
Big Return of the Joker, but got to give it to Mask.
Yeah. Let's stick with a couple more animated features here. In 2010's Under the Red Hood, directed by Brandon Vietti, versus The Dark Knight Returns. We're combining parts 1 and 2 from 2012 and 2013, directed by Jay Oliva. A couple of films in which Batman's past comes back to haunt him. Art, where are you going between the two?
Under the Red Hood. I remember the first time I saw this one, I thought I knew what was happening, and for whatever reason it shocked me a little bit. I think it's a very well done movie in terms of its narrative arc, especially knowing where it comes from. Whereas Dark Knight Returns, I think, is solid, but I personally have felt that they're two-parters, which we'll get into some. I think this may actually be the only two-parter. I don't know. I find myself not being the biggest fan of when DC decides to do two-parters, because they have all that time and then it still feels like they're missing something in the adaptation. Love Dark Knight Returns as a graphic novel, but for the movies, I have to go Under the Red Hood.
Yeah, Chris?
Same here. I have the same issue with the two-parters that they've been doing lately. Like with the Long Halloween. I didn't something felt missing in it. And with I think it might be also with Dark Knight Returns. It's just like it feels like the last like 5 Batman movies have been like taking inspiration from that. That it's just kind of like oversaturated on that version of the Batman.
I feel you.
Under the Red Hood, like that's like, as someone who loves the character of Dick Grayson Robin, you know, more, or just the character of Robin, I should say. I found that story so fascinating. It gave you a deeper knowledge of Batman and his sidekicks, and then what could happen, you know, in bringing in someone like that, putting them on the line, and the story that played out. I love Under the Red Hood, especially that the monologue with Batman and Hood and then Joker there. Like, that's all a perfect sequence.
It's very good.
Yeah. There's stuff that I like in Dark Knight Returns, but I think that ultimately the bigger that they try to make the Batman stories, the more global or universal or whatever it is, the more it loses me. And I really like when they keep it contained, especially when it's really about the characters and Batman dealing with somebody particular or coming to a new revelation about somebody that I think it ultimately works a little bit better for me. So I think I would prefer Under the Red Hood in this matchup here.
It's a good one.
All right, so the last of our first round animated matchups is between The Killing Joke and the Lego Batman. Chris, are you going to go with the Sam Liu film or the Chris McKay stop motion movie? This
was like one of the first times where I like the actual graphic novel, the book, and then watching it play out on screen, like I felt like there was some stuff lost in translation there where I just like, I didn't like it as much as I remember when I read it. And Lego Batman, to me, just brought like all the fun and love, all the fun side we don't get to see of Batman anymore on screen because they focus on the brooding part, which I do love. But like Lego Batman just reminded me like it was a combination of history and whatnot. So I'm gonna go Lego Batman. I really like that one. I don't want to give too much away because you're right. I gotta save my arguments for later.
How about you, Art? What do you think about The Killing Joke?
I don't like it. I do not like the Killing Joke adaptation.
Yeah.
Comic is great. It's too much weird stuff that happened there. What they did with Batgirl. I don't know. It was just such a. I mean, that was 2016 when everyone was hating on BVS. I'm over here. I was like, nah, The Killing Joke. Y'all just letting this one pass under the radar. And yeah, rewatching it, it was just I did not like sitting through it.
Yeah.
The Lego Batman gets better every single damn viewing. It is unbelievable. There's no reason it's making me laugh. There's no reason why I'm catching new Easter eggs on every single watch. And on top of that, it gets the character. It gets multiple of the characters around there. The Bat family, which we've been discussing, that we want to see in live action. This gets it right. Man, there are some scenes in this that almost makes me cry. This is the original Space Jam legacy because it brought in all the WB characters as well. Lego Batman, surprisingly, maybe one of my favorite Batmans, and I didn't realize that until I did all this rewatch. So, Lego Batman all the way.
Yeah, you know, Killing Joke was one of those movies that I had to watch in order to prepare for this, and
great way to put it.
Has this huge reputation as being one of the great Batman stories, and then I saw the film and did not like it, and then I saw that it's a lot of people who really like the comic and didn't like the adaptation as much. I've been thinking about this in relation to not only Batman, but some of the filmmakers that have taken on Batman, and he's a dark character, and there are dark things that happen in those movies, but sometimes when the filmmakers choose to indulge in the darker, seedier elements and kind of like revel in them, almost in a way that they want you to take joy from how dark it is where it loses me. It goes over the edge. Like, yes, Batman can be about these dark things, but it's not about enjoying the dark things. It's about them existing in his world. So I would definitely go with Lego Batman here. All right, let's get into the live action half of the first round and talk about the two Tim Burton movies. Batman 1989 versus Batman Returns. Chris, are you going with Joker or Penguin?
Yeah, I rewatched these movies because I was like reviewing them on my channel and whatnot, just getting all prepped up for the new Batman. And I always thought I liked 89 more than Returns, just because, like, you just assume it was my first introduction to Michael Keaton. You have Jack Nicholson's Joker, that's amazing. And, like, in watching that movie, I realized, like, this Batman doesn't learn a thing, you know? He gets to... I don't know how much of spoilers we're talking or anything like that, but he basically... He gets...
30-year-old movie.
He gets to kill Joker, and at the end, he's no different than when he started. You know, he met the person who killed his parents, then he was done with it. And, like, there was no arc or anything like that, and Burton really likes to focus like on the villains. So when I went to Returns, I found it way more enjoyable because of the relationship between Michael Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer in that movie. And like Penguin sure had like a crazy origin of being raised by penguins, but I liked like his speech in that where he's like, I live in the sewers of Gotham, I see the real side and all that.
Yes, sir.
I'm actually gonna go with Returns.
Yes, sir. I'm going to go with the one that takes place in the snow, has one of the craziest aesthetics, and has the Penguin coming in saying, I'm a monster, just like you, but I'm not acceptable up in the streets. I thought that this was fantastic. I'm a big fan of the 89 version.
Same.
But there's just something about Returns that I think I ended up rewatching that one a lot more. I like the dichotomy of the villains, and I like... like Chris said, there's this one moment where he tells Catwoman that he met her. He's like, sorry, not me. Another version of me met you. I'm going Returns.
I'm surprised but very glad to see it because I had never, I think, watched these movies not like in pieces on cable, and getting to actually sit down and watch them, I was surprised with how much more I enjoyed Returns than Batman. I mean, the original Batman is really fun, and I enjoy Burton's aesthetic and, of course, the Nicholson performance. But Returns is a really silly, fun movie with a lot of interesting elements to it, from the character design to just the way they interact. I'm going with Returns as well, so I'm glad we're all in agreement there.
That score, too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into the Schumacher films with Batman Forever versus Batman and Robin. I don't think that this will be a very challenging decision, but what do y'all think about Batman and Robin? Art, what's your thoughts on that one?
You know, putting it on the Bat card, putting it on the spandex. I love how people complain about the nipples. but somehow the dude has an even worse suit towards the end of the movie. There's a lot in that movie that is just weird, bonkers that it even got made. I know, rest in peace, Joel Schumacher. I like what he did with Forever. That to me was like the exact campiness that he was going for. Maybe got away with it too much there that he decided to go overboard with Batman and Robin to the point that he had to apologize for it. But it's an interesting take on Poison Ivy and how over the top it can be. I've always thought the Bane character was really interesting to see how juiced up he was, but yeah, it's a lot. And I really do like Forever. I think Forever is a perfectly camp Batman movie.
Yeah. I hate how that Forever sometimes gets so overshadowed with how bad Batman and Robin is that people just like lump it together as like those were the two bad Batman movies. But I'm like, there's a lot of stuff in Forever that's actually like pretty well done and like somewhat balanced the dark and the campiness of it. And if we ever get that Schumacher cut, who knows? But I thought also Val Kilmer was a slightly better Batman than Michael Keaton. I know that's like maybe
we were having this discussion. Okay, yeah. I kind of feel you there too. I like his voice.
Yeah, exactly. And like we actually got to see him as Bruce Wayne walking around the company. He even had like a little tunnel that led from his office all the way down to the Batcave. Like I like Forever.
Yeah, definitely gonna go Forever here. I mean, Batman and Robin. I think there's maybe little elements you can pick out, and it's like, okay, the costume design is pretty cool and elaborate, and yeah, I do like Uma Thurman's take on Poison Ivy, but just meant so many ice puns that you got to get through in that movie. Easily would go with Forever in this matchup.
Kissed by a Rose, baby. Come on.
Let's get dark and gritty with the introduction of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. Are you guys going with Batman Begins or The Dark Knight? I have a feeling I know which way this is going to go, but Chris, which one do you prefer?
Okay, I have to get this out of the way because it's gotten me a lot of hate. I'm not over the moon about the Nolan Batman movies. They never hit me the same way. I said this on my channel. Like, I know I can understand why people like them and why they love them, but I always felt like I was a person on the other side of a party looking at a group of people have fun, and I'm just like, why can't I be over there? Why can't I enjoy them like everyone else does? There's a lot to love, and I'm going to go Dark Knight. I think the performances there were amazing. I think those two villains, Two-Face and Joker, both benefited the most from the grounded, realistic take to where, like, in Batman Begins, it's cool that he threw Ra's in there and whatnot, but I felt like Scarecrow was really really underused, was just kind of tossed aside. There were some cool visuals they did in there. I always love seeing an origin story, like seeing Batman get his gadgets and whatnot, but I think I'm just going to have to lean Dark Knight because that story was better for me.
Batman Begins is great. I think that's the one movie. It's the most underappreciated, underappreciated movie. It's the movie that every year when Batman stuff comes out, they go, no one talks about Batman Begins. I was like, there's always this group that's asking you to watch Batman Begins. I think people love it. And rewatching it, I think it's a fantastic movie, the way that they're able to build up his story, especially in the midst of Ra's al Ghul and the person who trained him and the flip there. I kind of feel like it's the first time we saw the Iron Man 3 twist done with a villain, but like, before it even happens. True,
yeah. I am the Mandarin. Yeah.
But man, but I am a huge fan of the trilogy, in particular, the one that, Zach has said, many believe is the reason why the Oscars expanded to 10 categories. It's the movie that has one of the greatest supporting performances, in my opinion, of all time. And I think it's a movie that really elevated the genre of superhero movies. This is 2008 when the MCU was barely starting with Iron Man, and when DC finally realizes, you can take this a completely different way. Because even with Batman Begins, that was 2006, that's coming up after the same way that with West movies, you're going straight into Tim Burton's. So like for Tim Burton, that's the only thing that they had. Batman Begins coming off of Batman and Robin is insane. And then to take it to the next level with The Dark Knight, I think that's why a lot of people were able to come into these movies and realize that they're not just popcorn flicks. They can have a lot of grounded elements to it and really be a movie that stands on its own leading up to the most recent one that we got. So I know it's a cliche, but I really do enjoy The Dark Knight and love all the different elements they were able to bring into it.
Yeah, I mean, The Dark Knight's a great movie. I'm going to go with it here, but you got to give some respect to Batman Begins. I think just in rewatching it, it is extremely daring. The way they start that movie, just kind of so unfamiliar to the Batman iconography that we know. It is like daring you to be like, what is going on? If that makes sense. Like it's not a movie that is beholden to trying to fulfill some kind of like expectation for what Batman movies should be. I think Nolan is trying to just kind of weave a film that of his own with a familiar character. So I think it's really important, and it also does so much for where the superhero genre goes. I feel like Batman Begins kind of sets the mold even more so than like The Dark Knight would for that kind of more serious direction, even if The Dark Knight ends up bringing it to greater heights. So I'm going to go with The Dark Knight, but Batman's really good. But Begins is really good. All right, so the end of the Nolan trilogy in The Dark Knight Rises is up against Matt Reeves' take, The Batman here. Art, are you nostalgic for Nolan's trilogy, or are you still hype on this new version?
Dude, the moment I said I like Nolan's trilogy, I forgot that meant 3, man, because I actually don't really liked I don't really like... Look, I'm not the biggest fan of Rises. I appreciate it, more now in retrospect. I don't think it's the best one. I think that there was too much buildup leading up to there. I think it really peaked at Dark Knight, and I wasn't really sure where he could take it. And it really showed you that 3 was a little too much in this world, whereas I am so curious to see what The Batman has in store. I think The Batman has the ability to be not just one of the best movies, but what scares me so much is that we're comparing Rob with one movie to people who have had multiple. And come the sequel, I'm worried. Because if we saw what Batman Begins ended up being with Dark Knight, I don't even know what the sequel's going to be for this round. Easily, The Batman.
To me, I still appreciative of the Nolan trilogy and whatnot, but I say even like the most diehard fans of this trilogy will say the third one was like the most lacking and was the one with the most flaws and holes and whatnot. And there was a lot of frustrating things in there that when I first saw it, when that movie ended and they decided to end it how they wanted to, I was like, well, all right, we're done with that. As to where, like, with The Batman, as that movie ended, I'm like, how soon can I get something else into this world? Like, I just want to see more, Like, I hate where it cut it off, and, like, you just want to see a little bit more about what's going to go down, what's happening with this Batman, what's going on with Gotham. Like, it entices you to want to see more of this world. So, for that reason alone, I mean, The Batman.
Perfectly said.
I mean, I did go back to The Dark Knight Rises because I don't think I had seen it since I felt disappointed by it in theaters. I gotta say that I liked it a lot more than I expected to on my rewatch. I still think there's a lot of that like strong Nolan filmmaking in the action set pieces. I mean, there's also just some really memorable moments, like Hines Ward outrunning the explosion.
Yeah,
it's a really silly but kind of crazy, fun moment. I don't know if I think it's a better movie than The Batman, but I did like it quite a bit more than I expected to. So if you have bad memories of The Dark Knight Rises, maybe give it a rewatch under some new circumstances. But yeah, I'm not going to disagree. Let's go with
that one. Made me lose faith in filmmakers. I don't trust that movie. Broke me, man. It wasn't just his back; it was my faith. Wow. I remember Nolan going around saying, "There's no Robin." I swear to you, there's no Robin. Talia al Ghul, Talia al Ghul. And then I'm sitting there going, like, this man just straight up lied through his teeth. So that's how I knew Andrew Garfield was.
Yeah, there you go. I was about to say that. Original Andrew Garfield right there.
So I guess I'll give The Dark Knight Rises that. It matured me for sure.
Yeah, sure. It's good for something. I don't know. Maybe I'm bringing my more casual approach to this one. Okay, let's get into the second round of Batman movies with the winners from our last matchups. Starting it out with Batman v Superman from Zack Snyder versus Mask of the Phantasm. Chris, which way are you going to go between these two Batman movies?
For the longest time, Batman vs. Superman was a movie like I thought I hated. Like I was just so upset with, like, this is Batman versus Superman, and then the wild decisions that were made there, where it's like,
Yeah.
didn't Superman just become like a hero like for 6 months, and now you're gonna kill him? I'm like, you're already doing Doomsday and like Lex Luthor. Like I'm fine with taking new interpretations of your villains, but like what they did with Lex Luthor, I was like, okay. And but then, having hindsight and seeing it in the middle of a trilogy with Zack Snyder, what he did with Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and his version of the Justice League, I was like, okay, it all kind of flows nicer together. I have more respect for it, but I don't think it's enough for me to put it over Mask of the Phantasm. So I'm gonna have to put Mask of the Phantasm.
I think I probably like BVS the most out of the three of us here, Ultimate Edition. Yeah, it's one of those movies where it's really relying on the fans to interpret what that Bloody Robin costume is, assume that the visions are supposed to be something that we're going to see in the future and what it leads up to. And yeah, I think that's what hurts it the most, but it's also what I like about it the most, like how deep into the lore it already is, but you can't do that on a big franchise where you haven't even been able to complete the story. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why it wasn't able to be fleshed out the most. And yeah, again, I'm not one who's going to be super big on the decisions that are made, but lines are crossed, very much so. But I think it also gave us, in my opinion, some of the best Batman fighting. I love that warehouse scene. I love the fact that he goes from being, a Bruce Wayne figure to then being in the cowl, but having that moment that I told you where he's hiding in the shadows, where he's just creeping up, imitating that Dark Knight Returns shot with the lightning. I think there's a lot of cool elements to BVS that I appreciate. But Mask of the Phantasm, one of the greatest Batman stories of all time. So Mask.
Yeah, I think make it 3 for 3. We'll go Mask for the Phantasm. I don't know. I've just never really been too big into Snyder's vision of it, but we've talked about that at length during our Zack Snyder bracket, so we don't need to bring that back up again. How about the matchup between Under the Red Hood versus the Lego Batman? Two very different stylistic approaches to the character. Art, do you have a preference?
I do.
Oh.
The Lego Batman. I love what the Lego Batman does here. I think there are a lot of really good jokes. I love that whole bit about, did he defeat you with the bridges and the parade? I love all the callbacks that this movie has. I think it's just such an enjoyable time with Batman. I'm saddened that not only Batman 2, but all the Lego movies just seem to have been halted for a majority of the time. But
yeah,
I don't know. I think that there's a lot of great stuff in the Lego Batman movie that is fun for the whole family. A lot of people have been saying, when am I going to get a Batman movie I can take my kids to? It came out in 2017. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go for the Lego Batman. I really love the story that it tells in there, and it makes me laugh all the time I hear the phrase, riddle me this. How did this happen? I love that line. So Lego Batman for me.
Chris, it looks like a tougher decision for you.
It is, because it's like, Lego Batman basically to me represents a celebration of Batman. Everything that's come before it and that fun side and having a good time. But Under the Red Hood is also just such a powerful story that I just can't put it under the Lego Batman. I love the story that much. Like every time I watch it, like I just get goosebumps, and I just like that dynamic. Oh, I'm gonna have to go Under the Red Hood. I'm sorry.
Ooh, all right, Zach.
I mean, I hear Chris, because Under the Red Hood is a really compelling story that takes interesting twists and turns. Like you're with it on edge, and the way that it reframes the characters is really cool. I have a lot more fun with the Lego Batman ultimately, and again, maybe that's me just being a little bit more casual in what I'm looking for a Batman movie, but there's just so much joy, and it's so packed full of jokes in that kind of like Chris Miller, Phil Lord-esque style. So I'm going with Lego Batman here, even if it's only by a bit. All right, back to the first 4 Batman movies, Burton versus Schumacher here. We're going Batman Returns versus Batman Forever. Chris, are you going to go with Batman Forever here, or are you Returns above all the else?
See, this is kind of hard, because I think this is where my nostalgia and what I watched over and over as a kid might overpower my choice, especially like I haven't even mentioned like Jim Carrey's Riddler. I love Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's
about it.
A person's always someone I could watch no matter what. Yeah, and like I liked what he did. I know it was over the top and wacky, but like I mean, there's still some of that wackiness fitting in today with the Riddler in the new movie and whatnot. but Returns is a better put together movie. It's a better told. It has better structure. The tone is better. The world building like Joel Schumacher's Gotham is awesome, but it's also just doesn't make any sense with the insane architecture it has. I'm gonna have to go with Returns.
I like you, Chris. I'm a really big fan of Forever. I know they're both hamming it up with Two-Face, played by Tommy Lee Jones, but I always loved what he did with his voice. He'd go like really high, then really deep. And yeah, Jim Carrey's over the top, but I loved his Edward Nygma. I thought it was so goofy. This is also a movie where, what's her name's in it? AMC, spokesperson.
Oh.
Heartbreak in a place like this. Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
Given some eyes with Batman. I was telling my fiance, I'm
one
like,
of the horniest performances in a Batman movie.
She didn't believe me. I was like, watch her eyes. What they looking at? And she's like, what's he looking at? I was like, they looking at each other. I don't know what to tell you. But Batman Returns has it takes the production design from the '89 version, and I think amps it up even more. And I love that look of Gotham. That to me, that gothic look of Gotham is that. It probably does it the best. I think that's the best version of it. Again, like I said, I love the characters in that movie. Michelle Pfeiffer did a fantastic job. If you haven't seen that behind the scenes of Michelle Pfeiffer knocking down all the mannequins in one go, do yourself a favor because the movie cuts it up and it is nowhere near as cool as how she does it on set. Batman Returns, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think during this iteration of the Batman character, the live-action movies were a little less afraid to embrace the fact that these are kind of kids' movies. Like, yes, they're also supposed to be enjoyed by adults, but like there's a lot of stuff there that is for kids. And I think you get a lot of the fun goofiness in that Returns movie, right? Like I love Danny DeVito riding around in his big rubber duck or whatever it is, and just the design of it all is really fun and gives you a full picture of this Tim Burton-esque world. It's a really great marrying of what.
What?
Oh, nice. Oh man, I mean, it's perfect. You know, it's that great marrying of the dark Tim Burton aesthetic with the fanciful, crazy wackiness that he likes to bring to a lot of his films. So I really like what Returns is doing. Maybe a fraction more than Forever. So I'm gonna go with that one as well. And then we got to The Dark Knight versus The Batman.
It all comes down
Chris.
to.
It's too early for this.
Let us hear it.
Look, okay, with The Dark Knight, that is like one of the most perfect Batman versus Joker storylines. Like I thought, like Christopher Nolan really understood what that dynamic should be like. Like some of the lines they threw out there, where it's like, "You complete me," or like, "Me and you were meant to do this forever," and whatnot. Like he really understood. I think that you can't undermine Heath Ledger's performance. Man won an Oscar, and I think he would have won it even without his passing and whatnot. I really like The Dark Knight, but it's also like the ending didn't completely land with me where that went. And love Christian Bale as an actor, but like that choreography sometimes with the fighting and stuff, and, like I just can't get it. With Robert Pattinson's The Batman, this was like, when I saw his version, I felt like I was finally seeing animated series Batman on screen, or like the one I would read in the comics there. Like I actually felt like him being smart detective, like the presence. Maybe it's because he's in the suit for like 90% of the movie, but just like even some of the acting he does with his eyes when he's scanning a room and the presence he brings. And the story's good too. Like maybe not as good as The Dark Knight, but it's still damn good, and that ending hits hard even if it's not like some big action set piece. So I'm going with The Batman. I'm going Robert Pattinson's The Batman.
I mean, this is a discussion, isn't it? Now we're talking we're talking LeBron here. It really just comes down to what people are going to be fighting for as a number one, and I think that's freaking awesome. You can't do this with an Iron Man series. You can't do this with a lot of the other characters, right? The only Marvel character I can think about is Spider-Man that people argue about. I love that we have this. But I think the Batman's my number 2 right now of all time, which is that's praise, bro. That's praise. That is praise because that means this is beating Begins and every other movie I grew up with, and the sequel might take over The Dark Knight, which to this day still has to be my favorite movie of a Batman.
It's a damn good. Like after I saw The Batman, I came home and I had to watch The Dark Knight to be like. what do I like? And I was watching.
Don't get me wrong.
This is still a damn good movie, though.
Don't get me wrong. It scares me how close it came when I saw it in Dolby. And I'll tell you this, because The Dark Knight is also shot with IMAX cameras, and I feel like it makes it more immersive. If The Batman would have been shot on an IMAX camera, we might be having a different discussion here, and I don't know how I would be able to handle that. But come the next one, and we do this bracket again, The Batman 2 may end up being the best movie ever, because the only thing The Dark Knight also has going for it is that it doesn't need to build up anything. It already had Batman Begins, right? It already had all that lore, and it was able to run with it. But for The Batman to be my number 2 favorite Batman movie, that also says a lot. So shout out to both of them. And I agree with you. The choreography is terrible. And also throw another one there. His voice.
But that's how you know the story's so good, when it's like a Batman movie and the worst parts are the action, you know? It's
exactly. Exactly.
Right.
But I'll leave it up to Zach. Zach, between The Dark Knight and The Batman.
It's up to you, man.
Look, there's a lot of things that I really appreciate about how Matt Reeves has been able to ground this character and give it this really amazing aesthetic, this filmic aesthetic. It's definitely feels like almost the most cinematic looking Batman. Yet there's something about the way that Nolan's story unfolds that gave me feelings that I don't think any other superhero movie has given me. It's just there's a sense of dread and chaos when you're about halfway through that film that is unlike most movies, generally speaking. So I don't know. I like The Batman a lot. I really love The Dark Knight. I'm going with The Dark Knight here.
I understand.
Yeah.
Here's my thing.
Sorry to disappoint, but well argued, Chris.
Between The Dark Knight being my number 1, in terms of superhero movies of all time, I'm worried that, because my second favorite superhero movie of all time is Spider-Man 2. I think The Batman is close to beating that, and that to me is pretty massive.
Oh, well. We tried.
Ding dong, the Bat Calzone's here, baby. Let's change our mind.
All right. Well, before we get to our final four, we're going to take a quick moment to thank the Intercutie Plus patrons, those wonderful Patreon patrons who are supporting the show. They are Magnitude Reviews, Ashley, Elizabeth, Jessica, Tim, Julieta, and our Academy members, Tushar, Cademan, Connor, and Josh, as well as the producer-level patron known only as Awkward. Thanks again for your support, and a reminder that you too can become a member of the Intercutie Plus team at patreon.com/IntercutPod, where you can sign up for patron benefits like early access to Intercut episode outlines, access to private channels on the Intercut Discord, and an invitation to our monthly patron Google meetings. Art, I think we're going to try and do the next patron Google meeting as like a, should we do the Oscars pre-show, the Oscars recap? It's going to be something kind of around the Oscars, right? You want to do the post-show?
Yeah, we got to see what people are venting about when it comes to who knows what winning, Best Picture, who knows what. You just know we're bound to be mad about something at the Oscars, so we're going to have a place to vent.
Awesome. So we will do another Google meeting with all y'all around then. But we got to get back into our Batman bracket because there are only 4 movies left. The 4 best Batman movies, period. It's unarguable. We did this with science. They are Mask of the Phantasm, The Lego Batman, Batman Returns, and The Dark Knight. A pretty cool array of movies there. Like, none that are too similar to each other. Shows you just all the different flavors of Batman that you have out there. Let's start it with the animated pair, Mask of the Phantasm versus the Lego Batman. Arturo, which is the best animated Batman movie?
When we were talking about Lego beating Under the Red Hood, you know, it's just because I thought there was a lot in the Lego movie that really excelled the character, really understood the character. And Under the Red Hood talked about consequences, which I really liked. Mask of the Phantasm takes that to a whole other level, and there's no way I could put the Lego movie over that. That, to me, is a movie that was the culmination of what I consider the best version of Batman, put into really like a emotional drama, practically. And I think some of the best movies that we've gotten recently have been able to come back over here and really get to the psychology of Batman, which I really love. And I think that's something, even the newest one with The Batman, that it excels because of the elements it was able to take from this. I truly think it's one of the best Batman stories ever told, and one of the best animated movie. Second to Return of the Joker, then. Return of the Joker's right there. No, it's right there.
How about you, Chris? Are you also going Phantasm?
Yeah, I mean, if I was putting Under the Red Hood over Lego Batman for its story, then Mask of the Phantasm has to be more, because that story is also just as powerful. And again, just how ahead they did it before Under the Red Hood and whatnot. I love Lego Batman. Like it's such a great celebration of the character and whatnot. But yeah, it's Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah. Again, maybe this is me just going in with my casual lens, but I'm down for a silly, fun time, and I'm gonna go with the Lego Batman just because that's my vibe, man. I'm here for a laugh, so I'm glad that you guys can off balance me and get to the true core of the character and choose Mask of the Phantasm. But I'm gonna put on the Lego Batman if I get a choice between the two. In the live action half, we're going Tim Burton versus Chris Nolan. Batman Returns versus The Dark Knight. Chris, which live-action movie do you prefer?
So it's Return versus Dark Knight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Classic or modern?
So, Return's really great. And also, like, so mature. Like, I think it was, like, the Batman movie that's shown the most blood, you know? I mean, even the blood in, like, the new Batman movies, like, that dark brown color to get away with it all. And it's, like, in Returns, it was, like, bright and red. It was in your face. And I just remember also being so scared of like Catwoman's death scene in that one at the beginning of the movie, and I was like, wow. But I mean, this is the Dark Knight, you know. Like I like the set that Tim Burton set up and whatnot, but the Dark Knight that's your dark realism. Just that there's even that scare scene in there when like the mayor's looking out the window and then Hockey Pads boy hits the window, and like I like even when I rewatched it, I forgot that happens and I still jump. It's a great story, the Dark Knight. I'm gonna have to go with that one.
How about you, Arturo?
Same. I want to give a shout out to Harvey Dent. I know that because Joker's in this movie, a lot of people take that and run with it. But I know there's some complaints about the way that they wrap up his story towards the end. But I thought that it was able to build itself up in a way that it really adapted. You know, one of the best comics out there, graphic novels, really is The Long Halloween. There's so much to pull from this that The Dark Knight took the whole Harvey Dent story, and there was still so much more to give to the Batman with the mafia side, and there's still so much more in this novel to do for other movies. But I love the way that Christopher Nolan handled it here, and just the turmoil that Bruce has to go through as well, especially with Rachel, and this idea that he doesn't realize he's fighting for her attention with another man as well. And a lot of the stuff that they set up here, one of the reasons I will speak nicely about Rises is because it takes the repercussions of how this movie ends, what this movie tries to cover up or do for Gotham, and showing that there can still be consequences after the fact. But again, I love The Dark Knight. I think it's not just one of the best Batman movies. I think it's one of the best movies made.
I was just thinking, like, what happened to Aaron Eckhart? Man hasn't been that active in recent years.
Frankenstein, never look back.
I feel bad.
A lot to like about Batman Returns, but I also will go with The Dark Knight here. Although, you know, while we talk about, when everybody talks about The Dark Knight, they obviously bring up Heath Ledger. But if we're talking about, like, iconic performances of Batman villains, like, you get so many of them in Batman Returns.
Scarecrow appears, which is so cool. I like seeing that. It's like, oh, yeah, this is a rotating list of people who still live in the city.
Yeah. I really love Michelle Pfeiffer in Returns. I really love Danny DeVito in that. I kind of feel like I feel the way about Danny DeVito in Returns that most people feel about Nicholson in the 89 version, as that like iconic, humorous but villainous performance. I don't know.
We talked about that Penguin won the Academy Award for makeup. I hope the next Penguin wins the Academy Award for makeup.
Yeah. It's like the West Side Story Anitas, but just for costume. All right, so we'll go with The Dark Knight and move that one into our finals and go with Mask of the Phantasm versus The Dark Knight to take the title of Best Batman Film Ever. Art, I know you don't want to choose between your darlings, but you gotta. Which is the best Batman movie?
Mask of the Phantasm is probably my number 3 favorite Batman movie. Then it goes The Batman. Then it goes Dark Knight. Simple as that.
All right. Chris, no, you're not as high on the Nolan verse, but
yeah, I'm not. But I'm not. No, it's still, you know, real recognize real, right? So, I love Mask of the Phantasm, but I think there are maybe other limits that were put in there that Nolan was able to get away with, you know, with the live action. version, like Two-Face and Joker in that, and they were given such great, like back what you were saying, Arturo, about how they actually did the whole origin of Two-Face so perfectly, and how you believe at the end of that movie, like, this guy did go bad. The part I'm having trouble with is just like most of the Mask of the Phantasm, like, I just loved. I found very little faults, and then it's just like Dark Knight was just like that little ending to me that kind of like, if it was only a little tweaked up, I would have liked it better. But I think I still am gonna have to give it the Dark Knight. I'm gonna go with the Dark Knight.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of with you on The Dark Knight in that, like, for me, I feel like that's almost a perfect movie up until the Joker kind of gets away from them. Yeah. And then it maybe doesn't have as much steam in its back half, but it's still so iconic and visceral. I really love The Dark Knight. I don't think I have the relationship to any of the animated versions of Batman that you guys do. I did enjoy Mask and the Phantasm a lot, but like, this is the version of Batman that I see when I think of Batman. So I don't know. I like that a lot. So I'm glad we're going with The Dark Knight in our Batman bracket, but not a huge surprise to me considering the reputation that The Dark Knight has. Chris, I feel like you were probably hoping for maybe a little stronger showing for Under the Red Hood or in something in our bracket.
That and the Batman, yeah.
What would be your top, or you guys, like, do you have a specific for what would be your top three?
Yeah.
You're out in an island, and for whatever reason, there's cable and a 4K player. What are the three Batman movies you're taking with you?
Well, then, I mean, if it's only three, I'm gonna take Robert Pattinson's The Batman. I really do like that, but like, I also want to have some fun sometimes, so I'm gonna throw in Lego Batman in there.
Hey,
because that's like a celebration. You get those references to the other Batman movies, and you'll remember them. And then I'm throwing Under the Red Hood as for an animated one.
You're making me want to watch Under the Red Hood again, man.
Mission accomplished, right? I'd go with The Dark Knight at number 1. I'd probably go with Lego Batman at number 2. And I might even go Matt Reeves at number 3. I really enjoyed his take on the Batman. It's very cool. So I think that's my favorite of the Batman movies so far.
Phantasm, The Batman, Dark Knight. And when The Batman 2 comes out, it's probably going to topple them all. That'll be the first.
I hope so.
I don't think that's happened in a minute. And this one got close. Every single time I watch it, it gets up there. It is so up there. It's insane to me.
Yeah. But I think that's a pretty good summary of all of these Batman movies. It was fun to take a look at it. Chris, thank you for helping us break all of them down. Before we sign off, how about we give the listeners at home, the viewers at home, a pick for the week, something to maybe take on a deeper dive, bigger look at the character, a deeper look at different types of iterations of the Batman. Maybe there's like a part of the animated series that you really love.
I was talking about, like, I would love him to do the fantastical side of some of the villains. Like, don't go too out there where it's like then you just suspend so much disbelief. But if he could stretch it a little bit with Mr. Freeze, that'd be awesome. Or other characters that might seem like Clayface and whatnot. But if I can't have that, please, I need it now. A serious live action Robin. I know people bag on that, but I'm like a 13-year-old adopted kid trained by Batman. Like, I feel like there's a story there that could actually work and taken seriously. I'd love to see it, but I doubt they'll do it.
That'd be crazy. I would love to see that because I think the closest that people feel that they could probably get is like a Batman Beyond, but that's a whole different story. That's so far in the future beyond where we are now that it would be interesting to see how someone takes that. That to me, a lot of people have called the Batman revolutionary, and I love the Batman. I just don't feel that's a word to use for that. Yeah. It's able to take all the elements and make something great. To me, taking Robin and being able to work with that, and I know Pat has said, I'm not doing it unless he's 13.
Yeah.
He does it, and he gets it right. I think it's over, man. And I hope they build. I hope they build to a third movie where we can get I don't know, a Death in the Family. I think that would be fantastic. But before that, we need the family.
Absolutely. I agree, man. It's that giving him things to care about in his sphere, right? Like giving him more than just the task of being a hero. Maybe the task of protecting those close to him too is maybe an exciting proposition. You know, that whole dynamic of him being a loner, to give him some kind of sidekick could be really exciting. You know, the moments when he's working side by side with Catwoman in this version, it's really electrifying. Cool. So, you know, maybe we can get an element of that with a live action Robin, you know. I feel like I doubt that it's going to happen, but it'd be really cool if it could happen.
I think so.
I think that's a pretty good summary of all these Batman movies. Glad we got to take a look at them. Thank you so much, Chris, for helping us break them down. Before we sign off from this Batman-themed episode, I'm going to get to pick for the week where we give the listeners, the viewers at home, some recommendation for a little bit of a deeper dive. Maybe there's a particular iteration of Batman in a movie form or in an animated form. Maybe there's an episode of the animated series that people should go out of their way to watch or rewatch even. Art, what would you say people should go try to catch?
I really love the fact that HBO has all of these available for you to watch from the comfort of your own home. They have all the seasons of the Batman animated series. You really can't go wrong with those episodes. I think it really understands the character, and literally it covers everything you need to know about Batman. But if I were to pick one, do yourself a favor and go watch the uncut version of Return of the Joker. It is a movie that always has fascinated me. It's always stuck with me. I know that a lot of it comes from my own bias because it's probably the animated movie that I've rewatched the most. Big ol' catch that I know it's over on HBO Max, and I think it's really good.
Oh, it's awesome. Nice, yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, like, every night before bed, like about a month or two before the Batman, I'd pick one, like, animated series Batman episode, dead of the night, watching
That's
it,
sick.
like...
As dope.
Like, they're so good. Like they don't feel like it was made for kids. They hold up. Like it's Like sometimes it would surprise me. They legit talk about drugs and abuse and stuff. I'm like, wow. Like this was. Like,
well, that's the thing in Mask of the Phantasm. The way that you begin with those criminals, that was hard. It's really good stuff.
I do recommend that, but if aside just to be different, check out the Batman prequel novel. Like whether you want to actually read the book or the audible version of it.
Right.
Like there is actually some really interesting stuff that just enhances your experience of the Batman. It's not required reading. I know some people get mad when it's like, if I have to read a book to watch a movie, I'm not doing it. But this just makes that viewing experience better, and it lets you know how he got his Batcave, Batmobile, all that. It's worth checking out.
I agree.
Very cool. I'll give a very quick shout out to my friend Chris, who heartily recommends the episode Heart of Ice from the animated series. You think that's like the single best piece of Batman material out there? I'll give a recommendation to the book The Caped Crusader, Batman and the Rise of Nerd Culture by Glenn Weldon. I think it's a really fascinating book about the history of the character, not only how the character grew and evolved, as well as the different people who are responsible for drawing him or writing his character, and how the character then transformed into somebody for TV or somebody for film, but also in the way that the fandom for Batman has impacted the way that Hollywood interacts with different types of nerdy properties or what have you. The way that fan demands have grown to shape what types of Batman movies we see. I think it's a very intelligently written book that makes a lot of smart points, informs you in a lot of ways. I think if you're also not so much into reading it, I'd highly recommend the Audible version because Glenn Weldon does a really great job of narrating it. He's got a great voice. He does great impressions along the way. There's a little bit of the comic book voice guy from The Simpsons and some Irish accent, the Adam West accent, some old-timey announcer accent. It's pretty fascinating listen. So again, The Caped Crusader, Batman and the Rise of Nerd Culture by Glenn Weldon. I would highly recommend that book.
Don't forget, get your heads up already. Y'all need to read Court of Owls before the next one. They keep hinting it. I swear to you, it's more spoiler talk, but I swear to you, there's hints of it already in the Batman, so get ahead of it.
All right, so I think that's about all for this week's show. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd at ZShevich. That's ZSHEV, as in Vicky Vale, ICH. Chris, where can people catch more from you?
Yeah, you guys can find me at youtube.com/3cfilms or on Twitter at 3cfilms. Now even trying the TikTok game, see if I can do that at 3cfilms.
Nice. Yeah, we all got to learn about TikTok now. All right, where can people find more from you?
You can find me over at LME Explain on Letterboxd, Twitter, YouTube, and every week here on the Intercut podcast.
You can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher. I like Overcast. And then make sure you're subscribed not just to the audio feed, but to the video feed as well at youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can catch our bright smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of the Intercut Weekend Must Watch streaming every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, as well as more episodes like this Batman bracket and other supplemental stuff coming throughout the week. Please leave us a comment, like the video, and consider heading over to iTunes to give us that much requested 5-star review. And shout out to our listeners in Greece and South Africa for putting us on the TV and film podcast charts out there, like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. All of them are at IntercutPod to get updates throughout the week from me, from Art, from Chris, from all the guests that we feature here on Intercut. Also, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/intercutpod and check out the Discord at the links in the description. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, why do we fall? To pick ourselves back up,
baby.